There's a moment, and if you've ever been alone long enough to hear your own thoughts clearly, you've felt it. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, it whispers, a quiet, persistent feeling that something is missing, not outside, but inside you. And no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you chase, no matter how many times you tell yourself, I'll be happy when, it never fully goes away. It just waits. And then one day, it hits you harder than ever. Why do I still feel incomplete? You try to ignore it. You distract yourself. You scroll. You work. You chase goals. You build a life that looks right from the outside. But deep down, there's this strange tension. Like you're playing a role you never fully chose. Like you're living a story that doesn't completely feel like yours. And the scary part is, you don't even know where it started. You just know it's there, that quiet gap between who you are and who you feel you're supposed to be. And if that feeling is hitting you right now, if something inside you is quietly saying, this is me, then stay with me. And before we go deeper, subscribe to the channel. Because this isn't just another video you watch and forget. This is something you come back to when life feels heavy, when your mind gets loud, and when you need clarity the most. See, most people don't realize this. But the reason you keep searching, the reason nothing ever feels like enough, is because you've been taught to build your identity on something unstable. You've been taught to become your story, your past, your successes, your failures, your expectations. All of it gets stitched together into this narrative you call me. And over time, you don't just have the story, you become it. You start saying things like, this is who I am. But if you really stop and look at it, is it? Or is it just a collection of things that happened to you, things you believed, things you were told? Because here's the truth that most people never question. Your story is not you. It's something you carry. And the moment you confuse the two, that's where the struggle begins. Think about it. How many times have you felt like life didn't go the way it was supposed to? Like something went wrong somewhere along the way? Maybe a relationship ended that you thought would last forever. Maybe you didn't reach a goal you were so sure you'd achieve. Maybe you had a vision of your life, and reality just didn't match it. And now, there's this quiet disappointment sitting in the background of your mind. That disappointment becomes part of your story, and then your story becomes your identity. And suddenly, you're not just someone who experienced failure, you're someone who feels like a failure. You're not just someone who went through pain, you become someone who carries pain as part of who they are. And without even realizing it, you start living inside that version of yourself. But here's where it gets deeper. Even when things go right, even when you succeed, the feeling doesn't fully go away. You achieve something you wanted, and for a moment, it feels good. But then, it fades, and the mind immediately moves to the next thing. What's next? What else do I need? And you keep chasing more success, more validation, more proof that you are enough. But no matter how much you add, the feeling of not enough finds its way back. Because the problem was never what you had, it was where you were looking from. You were trying to complete yourself using things that were never meant to define you. And this is where most people get stuck for years, even their entire lives. They keep adding layers to their identity. More achievements, more possessions, more labels, hoping that one day it will finally feel complete. But it never does. Because the part of you that feels incomplete is not something that can be fixed by adding more. It's something that needs to be seen. You see, there's a difference between who you are and the voice in your head that talks about who you are. And most people never separate the two. That voice, the one constantly commenting, judging, comparing, worrying, it feels like you. It sounds like you. But it's not you. It's a pattern, a conditioned way of thinking that's been built over time. And the more you identify with it, the stronger it becomes. It tells you you're not enough. It tells you you need to be better. It tells you to compare yourself to others, to measure your worth based on what you have or don't have. And you listen, not because you want to, but because you've never questioned it. But what if, just for a moment, you did? What if you stepped back and noticed that voice instead of becoming it? What if you realized that the thoughts you hear are not who you are, but something you are aware of? Because the moment you see that, something shifts. You begin to understand that you are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not even your achievements. All of those are experiences, not identity. And the deeper you go into that realization, the lighter you start to feel, because suddenly you don't have to defend yourself anymore. You don't have to constantly prove something. You don't have to carry the weight of being someone. You can just be. And that might sound simple, but it's powerful, because most of your stress, most of your anxiety, most of your frustration comes from trying to protect and improve an image of yourself that was never solid to begin with. You're fighting to maintain something that keeps changing, and that's exhausting. But when you stop attaching yourself to that image, when you stop trying to complete yourself through external things, something unexpected happens. The need to chase starts to fade. The noise in your mind starts to quiet down. And for the first time, you feel a sense of peace that isn't dependent on anything. Not because your life is perfect, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. And listen, this doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you stop setting goals or building a better life. It just means you're no longer doing it from a place of lack. You're not trying to fix yourself. You're expressing yourself. That's a completely different energy. Now, instead of chasing to feel complete, you move because you choose to. You act because it matters to you, not because you're trying to fill a gap. And ironically, that's when things start to align in a way they never did before. Because you're no longer desperate, you're present. And presence is something most people underestimate, because they're too busy living in their heads, replaying the past or worrying about the future. But life doesn't happen there. It happens right here, in this moment. And the more connected you are to it, the more real everything feels. Even the small things, a simple breath, a quiet moment, a genuine smile. These things start to mean more. Not because they changed, but because you did. And here's something important I want you to think about. If you've been chasing something your whole life, and it still hasn't given you what you expected, maybe it's not about finding something new. Maybe it's about seeing what's already here in a different way. Because the truth is, you're not incomplete. You've just been looking at yourself through a lens that tells you that you are. And the moment that lens starts to crack, everything changes. So if this message is hitting you, if you feel like something inside you is starting to wake up, don't ignore it. Don't go back to autopilot. Stay with it, explore it, and let it guide you somewhere deeper than you've ever gone before. And when you get a moment, drop a comment below and tell me what part of this spoke to you the most. Not because it helps the video, but because it helps you become aware of what you're feeling. And share this with someone who's been silently struggling, someone who looks okay on the outside but feels lost inside. Because sometimes one message at the right time can change everything. And as you go back into your life after this, remember this one thing: you don't need to become someone else to feel complete. You don't need to fix yourself to be worthy. The version of you that you've been searching for isn't somewhere in the future. It's already here. You just have to stop running and finally see it.